Cole Olson never wanted that blind date. He only went because he thought he needed to move on after 4 years of raising his daughter alone. But when the woman looked up, his heart stopped. It was Felicia Vincente, CEO of the company where he worked as a maintenance technician, a woman of power and elegance. And she was crying. That night would give him something he hadn't felt in years, and take something he didn't realize he was losing.
Thank you.
But it was his daughter's question, months later, that would force him to choose between love and self-respect. The alarm went off at 5 in the morning, pulling Cole Olson from a dreamless sleep on the worn sofa that had become his bed for the past 4 years. He had given the only real bed in their tiny studio apartment to his daughter, Anael, because that was what a single dad did when space was limited and choices were few. The sofa springs dug into his back every night, leaving him stiff and sore each morning, but he never complained. Complaining required energy he didn't have, and besides, Anael deserved better than sleeping on a couch. She deserved a real bedroom with a real door and privacy, and all the things a 10-year-old girl should have. But this cramped studio was all Cole could afford on a maintenance technician's salary, so the sofa it was. The ceiling above him had a water stain in the shape of something that might have been a cloud or might have been a face, and Cole had spent countless nights staring at it, wondering if his life would always feel this heavy. He stretched his aching back and looked across the small room to where his daughter was still sleeping peacefully. Her dark hair spread across the pillow like a halo, and her face held the innocent calm that only children could achieve. She was everything to him, the reason he woke up each morning despite the exhaustion that never seemed to fade, the reason he worked double shifts when they were offered, the reason he counted every dollar and never complained about the life that had been handed to him. Being a single dad meant sacrifice. It meant putting yourself last, always, without hesitation. And Cole had accepted that reality the moment his wife died, 4 years ago, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old girl who didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming back. The grief had nearly destroyed him in those first months. But Anael had needed him to survive, so he survived. That was what single dads did. They survived because someone was counting on them. Anael had started watching her father more closely lately, with those brown eyes that reminded him painfully of his wife. Sometimes Cole would catch her studying him when she thought he wasn't looking, her expression thoughtful and concerned in a way that made her seem far older than her 10 years, as if she was waiting for something he didn't know how to give. Children who lost parents young developed that kind of awareness, Cole had noticed. They learned to read the adults around them, to sense shifts in mood before any words were spoken, to carry worries that should have belonged to people twice their age. It broke his heart that Anael had become one of those children, even as it made him proud of the person she was becoming. Cole moved quietly to the kitchen corner with its small refrigerator and 2-burner stove that sometimes didn't work properly. He opened the refrigerator and surveyed its contents with the practiced efficiency of a man who had learned to stretch a grocery budget to its absolute limits. 2 eggs, a quarter loaf of bread going stale, half a carton of milk that needed to be used today. It would have to do. He cracked the eggs into a pan and began making breakfast, the familiar routine grounding him as his mind drifted to the evening ahead. Tonight was the blind date that the HR manager at work had arranged for him, the first date he had agreed to in 4 years, and he still wasn't entirely sure why he had said yes. The HR manager had been persistent, saying she had a friend who needed to meet someone genuine for once, someone who wasn't interested in money or power or status. Cole had finally agreed just to end the conversation. Cole didn't know it yet, but the life he had built to survive was about to be tested by the one thing he never planned for. His wife had died 4 years ago, after 18 months of fighting breast cancer that had spread too far too fast. The medical bills had nearly destroyed them, eating through their savings, and then their credit cards, and then leaving them with nothing but debt that Cole was still paying off one small check at a time. He had spent those final months working during the day, caring for her at night, and trying to be both parents to Anal, who was only 6 and didn't understand why Mommy was always tired and why Daddy always looked so sad. His wife's last words to him had been whispered in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and despair. "Don't forget to live, Cole. Don't just exist. Promise me." He had promised, but promises made to dying loved ones were easier to speak than to keep. For 4 years, Cole had done exactly what she had feared. He existed, he worked, he raised his daughter, and he never once thought about his own happiness. Dating seemed frivolous when there were bills to pay and a child to raise. Romance seemed impossible when his heart was still buried in a cemetery, 20 minutes from their apartment. He had convinced himself that he was fine, that having Anael was enough, that he didn't need anyone else. But late at night, lying on that uncomfortable sofa, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, Cole sometimes admitted to himself that fine wasn't the same as happy. Fine was just surviving, and his wife had asked him to live. Anael stirred in her bed, rubbing her eyes as the smell of eggs reached her across the small apartment. She sat up and immediately noticed something unusual about her father. He was wearing his only good shirt, the white button-down he saved for job interviews and funerals, and other occasions that demanded something better than his usual worn t-shirts. "Dad, where are you going that you're dressed so nice?" she asked, her voice still thick with sleep, but her eyes alert with curiosity. Cole felt his face flush slightly, the way it always did when Anael asked questions he wasn't prepared to answer. "I have a meeting tonight." Kind of a dinner thing. Anael's eyes widened with sudden understanding, and a smile spread across her face that made her look exactly like her mother.
Absolutely beautiful.
Like a date? Like in the movies? Cole nodded, unable to hide anything from the daughter who knew him better than anyone else in the world. Something like that. Someone from work set it up. Anael swung her legs out of bed and walked over to him, her expression becoming serious in a way that made her look much older than her 10 years. Children who lost their parents young often developed that look. A wisdom born from grief, an understanding of life's fragility that their peers wouldn't grasp for decades. "You should go on dates, Dad. You need someone. You've been alone too long." Cole knelt down to her level, his knees cracking in protest, and brushed a strand of dark hair from her face. "I have you, sweetheart. You're all I need." But Anil shook her head slowly, her brown eyes holding his with uncomfortable intensity. "But I can't make you stop being lonely. Can I, Dad?" Cole didn't answer, because the truth was, she couldn't. And she was wise enough, at 10 years old, to know it. The silence stretched between them, filled with all the things a single dad couldn't say to his daughter about loneliness and grief and the hollow ache that never quite went away. Cole didn't know it yet, but tonight would force him to choose between love and self-respect. The restaurant was called Lumiere, and it was exactly the kind of place Cole Olsen would never enter on his own. He stood in the entrance, acutely aware that his white shirt had a small stain on the cuff he hadn't noticed before, and that his shoes were scuffed in places where no amount of polishing could hide the years of wear. The hostess looked at him with barely concealed judgment before checking his reservation and leading him toward a corner table with obvious reluctance. Cole followed her between tables of wealthy diners who didn't notice him at all, feeling smaller with each step. He saw her before she saw him, a woman sitting alone at the corner table, her face turned slightly away, her shoulders trembling almost imperceptibly. Even from behind, Cole could tell she was beautiful, dressed in an elegant black dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. But something was wrong. As he approached, he realized she was weeping quietly, tears she was trying desperately to hide, dabbing at her eyes with a cloth napkin, her carefully applied makeup beginning to run in small, dark rivers down her cheeks. Then she looked up, and Cole's heart stopped beating for 3 full seconds. He knew that face. He had seen it on posters in the company lobby, on screens during all-hands meetings. Felicia Vincente, the CEO, the owner, the most powerful woman in the company where Cole worked as a maintenance technician. She was his boss's 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 boss, and she was sitting at his blind date table, crying like her heart was breaking. Her eyes went wide with recognition as well. Her gaze had dropped to the company watch on his wrist, the one with the Vincente Industries logo engraved on its face. "You work for me," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. Cole nodded, feeling the blood drain from his face. "This is a mistake," Felicia continued, already reaching for her designer purse. "I'll have the restaurant arrange something else. You can stay and enjoy dinner with me. Consider it compensation for the awkwardness." But she didn't move to leave, and Cole, against every instinct telling him to walk away from this impossible situation, against every voice in his head screaming about power imbalances and career suicide and the absolute insanity of what he was about to do, pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. "You were crying," he said simply. Felicia stiffened, her spine straightening with the practiced posture of someone who spent her life projecting strength. "That's none of your business." Cole looked at her, really looked at her. Past the expensive dress and the powerful title and the carefully constructed armor of authority, he saw the redness around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands, the loneliness that radiated from her like heat from a fire. He recognized that loneliness. He had felt it every night for 4 years, lying on his sofa, staring at the ceiling, missing his wife. "I know it's not my business," he replied quietly, "but I can't walk away from someone who's hurting, even if that someone could fire me tomorrow. My mother raised me better than that." Something flickered in Felicia's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity, or the first crack in a wall that had stood unbreached for 5 years. She didn't tell him to leave. She didn't call security or demand to speak with a manager. She just sat there, looking at this maintenance worker who had somehow found the courage to stay when anyone else would have run. They talked for 3 hours. Cole still didn't understand how it happened, how the most awkward beginning imaginable gave way to something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine conversation, real connection. Felicia told him about the anniversary she had been dreading, how today marked exactly 5 years since the worst day of her life. And then, slowly, hesitantly, she told him about Marcus, the man she had been engaged to, the man who had betrayed her with her own assistant just 1 week before their wedding. The scandal had been all over the tabloids for months. CEO cheated on, billionaire's broken heart. The headlines had been cruel, designed to humiliate rather than inform, and the humiliation had been complete. Every business meeting for a year afterward, Felicia had seen the knowing looks, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. She had built barriers around herself after that, defenses so high and thick that no one could get through. Tonight was supposed to be her first attempt at lowering them. Instead, the memories had overwhelmed her before her date even arrived. "Do you know what the worst part was?" Felicia asked, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Cole leaned forward to hear her over the soft classical music playing in the background. "It wasn't the betrayal. That hurt, but I could have survived it. It wasn't the public humiliation, though that nearly destroyed my career. It was realizing, in the months afterward, that he never loved me in the first place. He loved my money, my power. The doors I could open for him, the connections I could provide, the lifestyle I could fund." She looked down at the untouched wine glass in front of her, her reflection distorted in the crystal. "No one has ever loved me for just me, Cole. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the name on the building. Just Felicia. I sometimes wonder if I stripped away everything, the company, the money, the power, would anyone stay? Would anyone even notice the woman underneath? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. And the answer is always the same. No, no one would stay. No one ever has. Cole felt something break inside his chest, not because he pitied her. Pity was easy, and this wasn't that. He felt something break because he understood, completely. Absolutely. He was a single dad working maintenance for minimum wage, sleeping on a sofa to give his daughter the only bed in their tiny apartment. And she was a billionaire CEO who could buy anything in the world, literally anything, except someone who loved her for who she truly was. They were separated by an ocean of money and power and social status. But in that moment, they were exactly the same. Two lonely people who had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen by another human being. "I don't have any money," Cole said quietly. "I mean, I really don't. I count quarters to do laundry. I sleep on a sofa so my daughter can have the only bed in our apartment. I don't have power or connections or anything impressive I could offer you. But when I look at you, I don't see a CEO. I see a woman sitting alone in a fancy restaurant, surrounded by people who don't even notice she's in pain. And that's the saddest thing I've ever witnessed." Felicia looked up at him, her eyes glistening with fresh tears that she made no effort to hide this time. "Why are you still here?" she asked. "Any sane person would have run the moment they realized who I was. You could lose your job just for sitting here with me." Cole smiled slightly, the first real smile he had managed in longer than he could remember. "I've been a single dad for 4 years. Running away from hard situations isn't really in my nature anymore. You learn to face things head on when you're the only one your kid can depend on." They began seeing each other in secret 2 weeks after that first impossible meeting. Felicia insisted on rules, boundaries that Cole reluctantly accepted because he had already fallen too far to walk away. No public acknowledgement of their relationship under any circumstances. No discussions about the future or where this was heading. No expectations or commitments beyond the present moment. If either of them wanted to end it, the other would accept without question or protest. These were the conditions of loving Felicia Vincente, the price of admission to her carefully guarded heart, and Cole agreed to all of them because he was a single dad who had been alone for 4 years and had forgotten how to ask for more than what was offered. He told himself it was enough. He told himself that having something was better than having nothing. But late at night, lying on his sofa after returning from her penthouse, he sometimes wondered if he was lying to himself. Their worlds collided in ways that were sometimes beautiful and sometimes deeply painful. Felicia's penthouse overlooked the entire city, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made Cole feel like he was floating among the clouds. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. The kitchen had appliances Cole couldn't even name. Cole's studio apartment could have fit inside her living room 3 times over. The contrast was jarring every time he moved between their worlds, from marble floors to cracked linoleum, from original artwork to water stains on the ceiling, from a bed that probably cost more than his car to a sofa with springs that dug into his back every night. She offered to buy him new clothes to replace his worn wardrobe. She offered to take him on weekend trips to places he had only seen in magazines. She offered to hire a full-time nanny for Anael so Cole could have more freedom, more time to spend with her without the constant constraints of single parenthood. He refused everything. "I'm a single dad," he explained each time, the phrase becoming a mantra, a declaration of identity that he clung to when everything else felt uncertain. "Anael is my responsibility, not just my daughter. My responsibility. I won't outsource being her father to make my life more convenient." Felicia didn't understand. She had never had to sacrifice anything for anyone. She had never known what it meant to put someone else's needs before your own every single day, without exception. She had grown up with nannies and housekeepers and tutors, surrounded by people paid to make her life easier. The concept of choosing difficulty out of love was foreign to her, a language she had never learned to speak. Sometimes Cole saw the frustration in her eyes when he declined her offers, saw the confusion at his refusal to let her solve his problems with money. She was used to buying solutions. She didn't know how to give anything else. But there were good moments too, moments that made Cole understand why he kept coming back despite the rules and the secrets and the nagging voice in his head that whispered he was making a terrible mistake. Quiet evenings in her apartment, watching old movies on her enormous television, Felicia falling asleep on his shoulder like a normal person instead of the untouchable executive she pretended to be during the day. He taught her how to fix a leaky faucet, a skill that made her laugh with genuine delight because it was so absurdly practical for someone who could afford to hire a team of plumbers. She tried to cook dinner once and nearly burned down her kitchen, setting off 3 smoke alarms and filling the penthouse with the smell of charred pasta. And they ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor of her $1 million living room, laughing like teenagers. In those moments, Cole could almost forget the rules, almost believe that this could be real, almost convince himself that the woman beside him was just Felicia, not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the untouchable name on the building. But the rules were always there, waiting to remind him of his place. Once, Cole thought Aniel had seen Felicia's car outside their building. He didn't sleep that night, lying awake on his sofa, imagining his daughter's confusion if she discovered he was hiding something from her. A coworker once joked, "Funny how the CEO's schedule matches yours lately." Cole laughed, but his hands shook for the rest of the day. Felicia once almost reached for his hand in public at a company event where they had both appeared separately. Then she stopped herself, pulled back as if she had touched something hot, and walked away without looking at him. The message was clear. She needed him, wanted him even. But she didn't love him, not really. Not enough to tear down the fortress she had built around herself. 6 months passed in this pattern, 6 months of secret meetings and hidden happiness, and the growing realization that he was not her partner. He was her refuge. A safe place where she could escape from her loneliness without ever risking her heart. It was Anael who finally forced him to see what he had been avoiding for 6 months. She was 10 years old, but she had the eyes of someone much older, someone who had watched her father struggle alone for years and had learned to read his moods with uncanny precision. One evening, Cole came home late from another secret meeting with Felicia. Anael was sitting at the small table, her schoolbooks open but clearly untouched. She looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between concern and accusation. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Cole sat down across from her, suddenly exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. "Of course, sweetheart. Anything." Anael was quiet for a moment, choosing her words with care that seemed too mature for her age. "Are you happy?" The question hit Cole like a punch to the chest. "What do you mean?" "You go out a lot now," Aniel continued, her brown eyes fixed on his. "And when you come home, you smile." "But your eyes don't smile, Dad. I've been watching. Your mouth smiles, but your eyes stay sad." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice trembled. "Mom told me once, before she got too sick. She said I should take care of you after she was gone. She said don't let Dad forget how to be happy." Anael looked down at her hands. "I don't know if you're happy, Dad, and it scares me, because you're all I have." Cole couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely, and he felt tears threatening to spill. His daughter, his 10-year-old daughter, who had already lost her mother, was sitting in front of him with fear in her eyes, because she could see what he had been trying to hide from himself for 6 months. He wasn't happy. He was in love with a woman who kept him hidden like a shameful secret. He was teaching Anael, through his actions, that love meant accepting crumbs instead of demanding the whole meal. He was failing as a single dad in the one way that mattered most. He was failing to show his daughter what healthy love looked like. That night, after Anael had finally gone to sleep, Cole lay on his sofa and stared at the ceiling for hours. Cole realized something terrifying. His daughter wasn't asking about his happiness. She was asking whether love was worth hiding. He thought about his wife, who had loved him completely and openly and without shame, who had held his hand in public and introduced him to strangers with pride, who had never made him feel like he wasn't enough. He thought about Felicia, who claimed to need him but couldn't bring herself to acknowledge his existence to anyone. He thought about Anael, who deserved a father who knew his own worth, and for the first time in 6 months, he allowed himself to admit what he had been denying. This couldn't continue. Something had to change. The change came faster than he expected. Felicia called him to her office, something she had never done before. Cole stood in the executive suite on the 40th floor, surrounded by glass walls and expensive artwork, feeling more out of place than he had ever felt. Felicia sat behind a massive desk, looking beautiful and cold. Nothing like the woman who had cried on his shoulder or laughed while burning pasta. "There's a position opening at our New York branch," she said without preamble. "Better pay, better title. I've already recommended you for it." Cole felt his stomach drop. "You want me to leave?" Felicia's expression remained neutral, professional. "People at the company are starting to notice things. Your schedule and my schedule match too often. Whispers in the break room. It's too risky." Cole stared at her. "Risky for who, Felicia? For you? For your reputation?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I'm a single dad," Cole said, his voice quiet but firm. "Anael has her school here, her friends here. Her mother is buried 20 minutes away, and we visit every month. I can't uproot my daughter just because you're afraid someone might find out about us." He met her eyes without flinching. "I want you to choose. Either you acknowledge this relationship, stop hiding like it's something shameful, or you end it. But I'm done being your secret. I'm done teaching my daughter that love means being hidden." The silence stretched between them like a canyon. Cole watched Felicia struggle, watched the fear and the pride and the old wounds battle across her face. He wanted her to choose him, desperately, completely. But he already knew she wouldn't. She couldn't. The armor she had built was too thick. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I need more time." Cole shook his head slowly. "My daughter asked me last night if I was happy, looked me right in the eyes and asked. And I couldn't answer her. Because in truth, Felicia, I'm not happy. I love you. God help me. I love you so much it hurts. But I can't keep loving someone who's ashamed of me." He turned and walked toward the door. For a second, he almost stayed. Then he thought of Anael's eyes at the kitchen table. And that was enough. "Cole, wait." But he didn't stop. For the first time in his life, this single dad chose to respect himself. And it was the hardest thing he had ever done. 2 weeks passed. Cole went to work, came home, made dinner for Anael, and tried to pretend that his heart wasn't breaking into smaller pieces each day. He had done the right thing. He knew that with absolute certainty. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. Felicia didn't contact him. No calls, no texts. He saw her once, from a distance across the lobby, walking with a group of executives. She looked exactly the same as always. Polished, perfect, untouchable. As if he had never existed in her life at all. Then, on a Tuesday evening, there was a knock on his apartment door. Cole opened it to find Felicia standing in the narrow hallway, looking completely out of place in her designer coat and expensive heels. She had never been to his apartment before, had never seen the tiny space where he and Anael lived, the sofa where he slept, the single bedroom he had given to his daughter. Her eyes swept across the room, taking in every detail of its smallness. "I was wrong," she said before he could speak. "About everything. About the rules and the secrets and trying to send you away. I treated you like you didn't matter. And I'm so sorry." Cole wanted to believe her. Part of him was already reaching out, already forgiving. But Anil was standing behind him now, having emerged from her room to see who was at the door. The girl's eyes were cold as she looked at Felicia. "You're the one who made my dad sad," Anael said flatly. It wasn't a question. Cole watched Felicia flinch, watched the powerful CEO shrink under the gaze of a 10-year-old girl who had already lost too much to tolerate anyone hurting her father again. Felicia did something Cole had never seen her do. She knelt down to Anael's level, expensive coat touching the worn carpet, and met the girl's eyes directly. "You're right. I did hurt your dad. I was scared of loving him properly, scared of getting hurt again. So I kept him hidden, like a secret. That was wrong. That was cowardly." Anil's expression didn't soften. "My dad works really hard. Double shifts sometimes. He gave me his bed so I could have my own room. He makes me breakfast every morning even when he's tired. He never complains. He deserves someone who's proud of him, not someone who hides him." Felicia nodded slowly. "He deserves everything. And I'm going to prove that I understand that now. Not with words, with actions." The company's 15th anniversary gala was the biggest event of the year. 800 employees, partners, investors, and journalists gathered in the grand ballroom of the finest hotel in the city. Cole was there, standing near the back with a few confused co-workers, wearing a rented suit. Anael had helped him pick out a blue tie that matched his eyes. Felicia took the stage to thunderous applause, looking every inch the powerful CEO in a stunning red gown. She spoke about the company's history, its achievements, its future plans, standard corporate messaging. But then she paused. The prepared speech seemed to falter. She looked out over the crowd, and Cole could have sworn her eyes found his. "Before I continue," Felicia said, her voice suddenly different, more personal, "there's something I need to say. Something I should have said months ago." She stepped away from the podium and began walking down from the stage. The crowd murmured in confusion. Cameras flashed, and Felicia kept walking, straight through the ballroom, between tables of wealthy donors and confused executives, until she was standing in front of Cole. "This is Cole Olson," she announced, her voice carrying across the now silent room. "He's a maintenance technician here at Vincente Industries. He's also a single dad to a wonderful girl named Anael, and he's the man I love." She paused, letting the words sink in as gasps rippled through the crowd. "I kept our relationship secret for 6 months because I was afraid of judgment, afraid of being hurt again. But Cole is the only person who has ever seen me as just Felicia, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just me." She took his hand. "Cole Olson is the man I love, not a secret, not a mistake. And I take full responsibility for this choice." The room erupted. Cameras flashed from every direction. But Cole barely heard any of it. All he could see was Felicia, standing before him, having torn down everything she had spent 5 years building in front of 800 witnesses. She had chosen him. Finally. Completely. Publicly. 1 year later, Cole sat at the same corner table in Lumiere where he had first met Felicia. Across from him sat Anael, now 11 years old, wearing a purple dress she had picked out herself. She kept glancing at the door with barely contained excitement. Felicia arrived and slid into the seat beside Cole with the easy familiarity of someone who belonged there. The past year had changed things between all three of them. Felicia had sold her penthouse and bought a house with a backyard, big enough for Anael to have her own room and for Cole to finally sleep in a real bed. "Why are we back here?" Felicia asked. Cole reached into his jacket pocket, his heart pounding. The ring had cost him 6 months of saved overtime pay, money he had insisted on earning himself. "1 year ago, I walked into this restaurant expecting to meet a stranger. Instead, I met a woman sitting alone, surrounded by more money than I would ever have, and more loneliness than I had ever seen." He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a simple ring, modest but beautiful. "I'm still just a single dad. I still don't have money or power, but I can promise you this: I will always see you, just you. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Felicia." Anael was practically vibrating. "Say yes, say yes." Felicia laughed through tears, happy tears, healing tears. "Yes, 1,000,000 times. Yes." Cole slipped the ring onto her finger, and Anael cheered loud enough that other diners turned to look, but none of them cared about the attention. And there, in the restaurant where they had first met, where a single dad had refused to walk away from a woman in pain, a new family began, not built on money or power. Built on the simple, stubborn choice to stay, to love, to be seen. Some people spend their whole lives searching for someone who will love them for who they really are. Cole Olsen found that person on a blind date he never wanted, and together, with a wise 11-year-old watching over them, they discovered that the greatest luxury in the world isn't wealth or status. It's being truly known and truly loved, just as you are. Love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone brave enough to grow with you.